Okay, here's what we're going to cover. Is going to be the second to last step. We're going to solder up all of our electronic speed controls to our power distribution board. What you're going to need, in addition to what came with the kit, is your connector. So depending on what type of batteries you use, you can either use like the Dean style or the T style connector, or this is an XT60. What I've had to do for these speed controls is I had to extend the wires on all of these because I had used them on another project. So what you're really going to be paying attention to is the red and the black. These are going to become the speed controls that we offer with the kit are going to come with the 6-inch red and black leads, and all the reds are going to go to the pluses here on the distribution board, and all the blacks are going to go to negatives here on the power distribution board. These the blue and the brown ones again are ones that I had to extend out because I had cut these wires short for another project. So first thing what I've done here is I've gone through and I've stripped all these wires back. Now what you don't want to do is make the mistake of having like 1 inch of stripped wire out here. You want to have just about the same amount of stripped wire as the size of the circles down here. So you don't want it to hang way over. If you've got, a ½ inch or a whole inch of stripped wire here, we're going to have the portion that's soldered to it and then a whole bunch of bare wire that sort of hangs off over the edge. And we don't want that. So we want just enough to fit inside of our little circle terminals down here. So now what we can do, we've got everything stripped off. We've got our battery cable. The battery cable I'm going to feed up through this hole back here. What we're going to do is we're going to take our soldering iron and get some solder, and then we're going to tin all of our connections. So all that means is we're just going to get the wire hot and get solder pre-done up on it. If you don't do this, you end up with a really, really bad connection. The solder won't flow through the wire and through the other connection. You'll end up with really, really bad connections that are easy to break. So it's really, really important that we tin our wires and then also our board first. So just get the wires hot and get the solder flowing through them. The other thing that you can do is cut these wires back to be the correct length. So sort of before you trim that portion off, decide how long you want this wire to be. I'm going to leave mine really, really long and then just zip tie them back just because they'll probably come off and be thrown on several different projects. But if you wanted to make it a really nice clean installation rather than me having this one that goes all across the entire board, you could trim it up and have it come just right to the closest terminal to that arm, and that would make for a much, much cleaner installation. Be able to use a few less zip ties there. So almost done with all the wires here. So now once we've got all the wires tinned, now what we're going to do is decide which terminals here on the power distribution board we're going to use, and we will tin all those as well. Again, for every single set of wires we're going to need one plus and one minus. So what I'm going to do is this one right here is going to be the one that I use for my battery cable. And then I will use this, probably all the corners then after that. So I'll use these two right here and then every single corner for all of my other connections. And there's plenty of extra terminals here too, so if you've never soldered before and you want to get in some practice, then go ahead and take a couple spare pieces of wire, or once you've trimmed back your ESCs, take a couple pieces and go ahead and practice a little bit. You can practice on some of those inside terminals or practice on some of the terminals that you're not going to use for your connections. But now that everything's tinned, now as we lay the wires down and apply a little heat, see how everything flows together there. This is much, much easier than adding solder as you go, or trying to take two an unsoldered connection and an unsoldered wire, and trying to get that to stick and have it stick reliably. There we go. And again, what yours are going to be is it's going to be red goes to plus and black goes to minus. Once you apply the heat, you'll see that the solder reliquefies, and then you want to leave the soldering iron there for just a minute until everything's all liquid and you see everything looks nice and shiny. And then as you take the iron away, you'll see it sort of start to re-solidify and go back to being a dull color, or a dull, the shininess will leave it. I don't think I got this one tinned quite good enough. So. Try my hand at left-handed soldering here to try to keep it in the video. Last wire here. Alrighty, there we go. See if I can get a little bit closer. And then what you want to do is check all those connections. So now that you've got there and you can take a look at it, take a pick or a small screwdriver and just sort of give a push on everything. See if any of them look like they're going to break off. If anything seems like it moves at all, or anything seems like it's just not one that you're happy with, or it needs a little extra solder, that's where you'd apply it now. But as long as everything looks good, again, there we go. All of the red wires here go to plus. All of the black wires go to negative, and we should have 10 wires going to our power distribution board. 2 from each of the electronic speed controls, and then 2 for our battery connector. And now we're ready to move on to the setup with the CC3D and the OpenPilot software.